My name is Judith Wright. I'm an artist based in Brisbane, and welcome to my studio. I work across a range of media, from installation to video to works on paper, objects, a gamut of stuff. I think what I do now, I've done all my life. When I was a child, it used to be possible to buy these little plastic figures from Woolworths. So I used to make little installations really, and put plasticine mermaid tails and make little worlds for these creatures. So looking back, it's not dissimilar to what I do now. And I've always drawn my fellow schoolmates or the dancers in the ballet company. Line drawings, which is pretty much what I do now, filled in line drawings. So yes, it's been a continuum. I often go back over some of the forms with line because I keep coming back to that thing of line. It underpins pretty much everything that I do. The themes, general themes, permeate all the work. It just manifests in different forms. My main interest, I suppose, is just what it is to live in the world, you know, to be the vulnerability of the human condition. It's loves and disasters and grief and sorrow and joy and the whole gamut of what it is to be human. For me, the work is made in the mind of the viewer. I don't intend for it to be dogmatic in its message, if you like. Those works relate to human scale. I use Japanese paper pinned to the wall so that it underpins the fragility of life. Doesn't have a hierarchical kind of position, it's just simply pinned. The paper, I think, has a sense of skin, a sense of translucency, the colours. I'm just drawn to those warm colours because of the concepts, really. A friend of mine said to me the other day, if green's your favourite colour, why do you never use green? And I thought, well, I suppose because it doesn't relate to what I do, where warm colours, there's a sense of humanity. Well, they're, as I said, pinned simply on the wall. They gain weight by the dialogue between each work, so that repetition becomes a significant conversation, if you like. I like to have them low so that there's a sense of entering into the work rather than gazing up at it. It's open to that conversation with the person viewing. I'm always really interested in shadow, and looking at some of the writing. Julie Ewington described, I think, maybe this work as shadows cast on the wall of memory, which I thought was so beautiful, because they're vaguely shapes, human body shapes, you know, a shoulder, or I guess they're as much representative of emotion as of physical form. They're also linked to 7 stages of desire. That has its beginnings in the early death of a child. So they're the imagined life of a lost child. And really that underpins pretty much everything I do. I suppose that's where I'm coming from with a lot of the work. that thing of compassion, hopefully, and vulnerability and memory and comfort from other people. I started making books really early on, and a friend of mine was a bookbinder, and she suggested that I use this paper, and I've been getting it from Japan ever since. The back of the page is more interesting for me than the actual front of the page because it obscures the form to some degree, and it works a little bit the way a shadow does on a wall. This is the paper. Comes in rolls. So in the case of these big works, the sheets are 2 meters long, and we join them with acrylic binder. And then I play around with these sketches, pin the work on the wall. I've arrived at the scale, which is pretty much my body span, and I just do a line drawing, and then I fill it in, for want of a better word, on the table using acrylic paint. And then sometimes I wax the surface. So both I work on the wall to some degree, but mostly the work is done on a table, on this particular table. I don't obscure the work for the sake of obscurity. It's more that it becomes open-ended and it can engage, it can be made in the mind of the viewer. So, and also it's more satisfying for me to not have full disclosure, if you like, or just to open up the possible readings.